If it's your first time buying in New York City, you're in the right place. I'm gonna demystify the entire process for you from A to Z. Let's jump in. When you're just starting off, the biggest questions are, what does the whole process look like from start to finish? How do I get prepared? What do I need to submit an offer? Can I find the right people and professionals to work with? I'm Daniel Chun. I'm a former attorney turned real estate broker in New York City. My mission is to help you make fully informed decisions. This is pillar number 1 of 3 of buying in New York City. I'll have links to the other pillars at the end of this video. So pillar number 1 is know the process. The entire process can fit into 3 buckets. The first bucket is preparation. When you're starting off, what do you need to do? The second bucket is due diligence. It's that critical time between when you get an offer accepted and before you sign a contract. The third bucket is after you're in contract, what does the road look like to closing? So the first bucket is preparation. What do you do when you're just starting off? It might seem obvious, but you really want to get clear on your criteria. So what do I mean by criteria? So there's a couple money decisions that you need to make. What's the purchase price, as well as what are your monthly payment limitations? And you're going to want to speak to a banker to understand what you can afford. So then there are location decisions. It's not just the neighborhood that you're interested in, but it's also the type of building that you're interested in, like a condo, co-op, or townhouse, a building with a doorman or not, an elevator or walk-up building, etc. Then there are layout or floor plan decisions that you have to make. What's the minimum size that you're looking for, the bedroom count, the bathroom count, whether you want outdoor space, open kitchen, etc. And even things like light profile are important things to consider in the beginning of your search, because if you want views and tons of light throughout the day, that might be high-rise buildings, and that might limit what neighborhoods you can actually buy into that don't have as many high-rise buildings because of the zoning in those neighborhoods. And your criteria is, you want to get clear on it as much as possible in the beginning so that you have a target to shoot at, but it's going to be a living and breathing thing that you're going to figure out along the way as you view apartments. So once you have your criteria all set, the next thing you want to prepare are all the pieces in order to submit an offer. The first piece you need to submit an offer if you're financing is a pre-approval letter. You can typically get a pre-approval letter within 24 hours from a bank. The second thing you need to submit an offer is a financial statement. You can use a standard financial statement, usually provided by the Real Estate Board of New York, which lists out your assets and liabilities and your income and expenses. The next thing you need is to choose a real estate attorney that's well-versed in New York City specific real estate transactions. And the last thing you need in order to submit an offer is to have an understanding of your terms. What do I mean by terms? There are usually 2 main terms that you need to understand in any real estate transaction. The first is timing. Do you have a lease that's expiring that you need to move in by a certain date? Or maybe you want to move in the summer before school starts so that your family can get set up ahead of the school year. If you have any timing restrictions like these, you will want to include those in the offer. The other very important part of knowing your terms are contingencies. In New York City, the 2 main contingencies are whether you have a sale contingency, meaning you need to sell in order to buy. The second very important contingency is what's called a financing contingency. What is that? It is a term in the contract that allows you as a buyer to walk away from the deal without losing your deposit if your loan is not approved. It sounds great to have as a buyer, but the problem is sellers hate this, because it means their deal is not a sure thing if they have a buyer that has a financing contingency. And so this is where a lot of buyers can get stuck in the market, losing bidding war after bidding war, because if you submit an offer, even if it's a competitive price point, and you have a financing contingency, you will automatically be put into Class B of offers when you're competing with cash offers, as well as other offers that are financing but have waived their financing contingency. You won't even be considered. The good news is that there is a specific strategy that I've used 100 times that mitigates the risk of waiving your financing contingency. It goes way beyond the scope of this video, but if you'd like to hear about that, let me know in the comments and I'll make a video on it. Okay, that was the first bucket, preparation, getting clear on your criteria and knowing what you need to submit an offer. The second bucket in knowing the process is knowing what to do during that critical period of time called due diligence, which is after your offer's been accepted, but before you sign a contract. So your offer's been accepted, what do you do next? This is that all hands on deck moment where you have your entire team doing things concurrently. So let's jump in. So first, this time period typically lasts about 1 to 2 weeks. It's important to note that during this time period, even though you have an offer accepted, your deal is not secured. And it's not secured until you actually sign the contract and put up a contract deposit, which is usually 10%. So what that means is at any point in time, you could have some other buyer swoop in and steal the deal from you. So it's important to get through this process of due diligence as quickly as possible, but without sacrificing any of the actual due diligence. So let me give you an overview of the entire timeline. So the first milestone is that a deal sheet that covers all of the terms of the deal and the parties to the transaction has to go out. Next, the seller's attorney has to send out a draft contract in addition to all due diligence materials to the buyer's attorney. The buyer's attorney then confirms receipt of all of those materials and the contract and starts their own due diligence by sending a questionnaire to the property manager of the building. Next, the buyer sends their first set of comments to the contract back to the seller's attorney. And this kind of ping pong happens 3 or 4 times during the entire contract negotiation. So all at the same time. This is when, if you haven't already, you submit your full application with all documentation to your banker, and you ask your banker to start underwriting the building. And concurrently, if you want to do an inspection, then this is when you schedule a professional inspector to come in and issue you a report. So there are potentially 3 timelines that you have to manage. It's the attorney doing their thing, it's your banker doing their thing, and then your inspector doing their thing. And your broker is likely going to be project managing the entire process in addition to managing the listing agent. So when you have green lights on all 3 fronts, then you're ready to sign the contract and wire your contract deposit, which is usually 10%, over to the seller's attorney's escrow account. And once the seller countersigns and sends that back to your attorney, then you are officially in contract and your deal is secured. So there is one more bucket in knowing the process, and that is the road to closing. So once you have the signed contract, you need to send that over to your banker so that they can submit it to their underwriting department to start the process of approving your loan. And if you haven't already, that's going to be the time when you want to submit all of your financial documentation, your employment letter and your bank statements, etc. They will also hire a third-party appraiser to go into the property to issue to your bank an appraisal report. The appraisal is important because the bank uses it to determine how much of a loan they are willing to give you. And depending on the bank and how much of this underwriting you started prior to signing the contract, you can obtain an approval of your loan, aka a commitment letter, within 1 to 4 weeks. At the same time, if it's a condo or a co-op, now's the time to start working on your board package. This can take a couple of weeks to get all the financial documentation, fill out forms, and get reference letters, etc. And while you're doing that, you're going to be waiting on the bank to issue you a commitment letter, which is going to be needed before you can submit your board package. And once you submit, a co-op can take 20 to 40 days before getting a response to you, which is usually going to be a request for an interview. For a condo, it can take 10 to 30 days to get a response, and there is no board interview. They just issue you a waiver of their right of first refusal. All in, the road to closing after you've signed that contract for a co-op can take 60 to 75 days. For a condo can take 45 to 60 days, assuming that you're financing. If you're not financing, then you can take 20 to 30 days off of each of those estimates. If you made it this far, kudos to you. You should now have a good glimpse of the entire process. So I went ahead and took notes for you and consolidated everything into a first-time home buyer's guide that you can access for free by following the link in my description. Hopefully that made the entire process more transparent for you. I went over a lot, but I didn't go into any one step in detail. So if you have questions about any of these steps, or if you'd like me to make a video about certain steps, let me know in the comments and I'll make a video for you. And remember, that was just pillar number 1, know the process. Don't forget to watch the other pillars, know the fundamentals and know the data.